to be like Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Jordan Belfort, Jerry Norton, Steve Trang. I want you to take all this, consume it, give me all the power phrases to be able to talk to a seller and they can't see, and I'm reading that screen and I'm hitting them with the bam. Okay, trial close, another trial close.
And then you can practice with the AI role playing, which is awesome because you get the marbles out of your mouth and stuff.
But he's spending the time to build out the drip sequencings that matter. And if you use that on your inbound leads, sky's the limit.
You know, like industry-wide sales, but they said 80% of sales happen between the 5th and 12th follow-up.
Welcome to the Leads to Deals podcast, where we talk about everything from leads to deals and everything we talk about leads to deals. This podcast is brought to you by LlamasuLeads.com, the industry's first enterprise level outbound lead gen service. If you need outbound leads for anything real estate, visit LlamasuLeads.com. On today's episode of the Leads to Deals podcast, I'm bringing on a man who quite literally changed the DNA of wholesaling, somebody who cut his teeth in Detroit on one of the roughest, thinnest margin markets in America and turned that grind into a blueprint for the entire industry, from like wholesaling junkers to flipping big ticket homes to making seven figures on a seven-figure deal. He's done it all. Here's the thing. He's not just a deal maker. He's the deal whisperer. I'm super proud to be able to have him on. His YouTube channel is one of the monsters in this space. It's given an entire generation of real estate hustlers the blueprint, the map to get it done. If wholesaling has a Mount Rushmore, he's already got a spot on it. So let's give it up to one of the biggest in the game, Jerry Norton.
Thank you, Scott. Awesome to be here with you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I was telling you offline, dude, I'm super excited about sales. I probably feel about sales in general as you do about REI and potentially sales. So I wanted to do this one a little bit different with you, since you are like Jerry Norton's here, man. I wanted to run some sales phrases by you and just kind of get some reactions from you of what it means to you, and maybe how like you convey that knowledge to some of your students or the people that follow you. Is that okay?
Perfect. Let's do it.
So let's do the first one. Telling ain't selling. What does that mean to you?
Well, people have this misconception that it's about features, and that's why people will buy something, or in this case, sell a property. And it's not about features. It's not about value. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about trust, and it's about confidence. And in distressed real estate, people choose you because they feel confident that you're going to solve their problem and you're going to get the thing to the finish line. So I'll walk out of appointments where I get the deal $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 lower than other offers on the table, simply because they feel more confident and more trust in me than those other people.
I had something later in my questions. I was going to talk about, how do you feel about people who've already been pitched by multiple other wholesalers beforehand? And I try to train my new closers, because they'll get this mindset thing where they're like, oh man, they've already talked to 5 different people. I'm like, they've talked to like 5 salespeople. They haven't talked to a closer. And they're like, well, I don't want to bore them with the benefits. I was like, you have forgot the rule of you can count on the mediocrity of your competition. So yeah. I think that's what you're saying. It's like, if they've even been pitched by multiple people, you still go in there and get the most amount of trust.
Yeah, it's not about price. Price matters. Clearly it matters, but it's not the number one thing. These are just, in wholesale real estate, these are distressed sellers. They're facing hardship. There's emotion involved a lot of times. And more than anything, they're looking for peace of mind. They're looking for you to solve the problem, which is usually it's either, stop the pain. Yes. I call it, stop the bleeding, because they're losing money with this property, or cash in their pocket the benefit of the win. That's really what they're after, not like value, price, features. We can give it to you at, we'll buy it as is. None of that stuff is what really matters to people in distressed real estate.
I feel like we could do a masterclass on this, because I know the parts that you're saying between the words too, but it's like they get caught on features. And I try to train my people here that features plus hot buttons equal benefits, because you can't turn a feature into what their benefit is until you understand what their pain points are. And so I guess that's my other question for you. It's like, quality questions. How important are your questioning skills in this game?
It's everything. I think it's about asking the right questions at the right time and with the right tonality. That's it. That's, to me anyway, there's probably more to it, but that is the core of sales in my style, the way I do it. Maybe you teach that a little differently, but man, if you know how to ask the right questions at the right time and you have the right tone, and the tone fluctuates based on all kinds of scenarios, that's where you have to bring that feeling. You know, it's more of the art of sales. Is sometimes I'll be more assertive, sometimes I'll be more curious, sometimes I'll be funny, sometimes, you know, like I'll implement these different ways or tonalities, but it's really about helping that seller take down the wall, feel like you're somebody that is a person of authority that they can have trust and confidence in. And that all circles around positioning with the right questions you ask.
You know, Jerry, I think you're hitting it right on the head. And one of the gaps that I saw in this industry was just the fundamentals of second and third layer questioning. And
Mm.
so you'll have people ask these initial questions and they'll address it, but they won't take the time to say the simple phrases like, "Oh, can you describe that for me?" Or just even tell me more about that.
Yeah.
And they're so surface level and their beds, bath, square footage, and they're not actually trying to find what really matters, which is the emotional hot buttons, pain points,
Yeah.
etc. So I was just curious how you feel about that.
Yeah. My favorite way to say that is what you're saying and then repeat what you just heard.
Woo.
So is what you're saying this, because what that does is it does a couple things. Uh, it gets them feeling like you care, like you're trying to understand what they're going through. It makes sure that you're understanding what's really going on. So you're not making assumptions. No matter how many times you've done this, don't ever assume you know what's going on. And that all is building that trust. I call it BRT, build a relationship of trust. It is from hello to goodbye. Everything you're doing is about building a relationship of trust. And the
I
better
don't know how
you
much
are
you
at that, the more you close.
I don't know how much of Jordan Belfort's actual like old school stuff that you've studied. I kind of love it. I love all the OG sales guys, but he talks about that. His whole thing is like this trust confidence metric that from
Yeah.
the moment you start with them, within those first 6 seconds, you have to establish that trust. And I saw that in some of your content too. It's like it's that confidence and trust, and those two themes repeated themselves. I wanted to hit you another one with one of these kind of sales things. It's that buyers are liars and sellers are worse. What does that mean to you?
Well, what that means is it means everybody has a hidden objectives, right? Meaning they say one thing, but there's something else going on, right? So when we say buyers are liars, sellers are worse, it's not so much that they're dishonest or manipulative, or it's not really that. And I don't ever feel that way about
Yeah.
people. I'm very trusting of people until they prove me wrong. It's more like I got to hold my cards close to me. I can't tell this person everything. They're a sale. They're going to steal. Like the initial reaction people have is, this is an investor who's going to steal my house from me. I better be guarded. So when he asks me a question, maybe I'll give him some half truths, or I'll tell him, no, here's what's going on, but there's really something underlying. And that those questions and that tonality are what bring out what's really happening. And they bring out what's really happening when you're asking the right questions and they're feeling like you care and they're feeling like you're trying to understand. That
Yes.
brings the guard down, that brings the truth out. And so like I just assume like whatever they tell me, especially price. So one of my strategies is I ask what price they want right out of the gate. In the first 30 seconds, I'm like, great, you want to, is this John? Awesome. Are you still looking to sell your house on 123 Main Street? Great. Let me see if I can help you out. What price do you want? And like, I'm not afraid to go there. And I know whatever they say isn't their real number. You know, it's the pie in the sky number usually. Sometimes it is, but it's usually a pie in the sky number because they're doing the same thing. They're like, well, I'm going to start high and see where this guy, you know, where we land. But you know, like what people do is they assume that whatever the seller says, they take it at face value when it's like,
Yes.
no, you have some more discovery to do. That's all.
But you're a trustworthy guy of yourself. And here's how I know that about you is that you've learned that you either put money first or smarts first, that you don't prejudge them based off of that number. Because I meet a lot of people in sales, if they took that strategy, they would immediately hang up. They're not there to stick around and push through. And I think also what we're saying too is like these people that quote unquote lie, it's a defensive posture. They don't want
Yeah.
to be taken advantage of.
Right.
People who are not interested sound a lot like people who are in extreme pain. They don't want to
Yeah.
open up and tell you right out of the gates, yes, my daughter has cancer, or I just lost my job, my spouse cheated on me, all these types of things. And so I love that we're saying we're willing to stick with them and even put up with somebody who's a little bit rough around the edges.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. How many of you listening right now have been on the other end of it, right? You're talking to a sales guy, they're asking you questions and you're giving them vague answers and half truths, right?
Amen.
We all do that, right? Because you're like, man, I don't want to, if I tell something, is that going to incriminate my ability to get the best deal or whatever, So like, just know that and make it normal. There's nothing going wrong here, but like your job is to discover the pain and find and provide the right solution. And if you do that right, and you can bring the right, questions, tonality, empathy, all the things, then really this isn't so much about sales. It's more about solving people's problems at a high level. And I always say, like, if you want to make more money, solve more problems or bigger problems. That's how you make more money.
I think Zig Ziglar's got something like that. I
Yeah.
love that. Yes, I love that. All right, let me hit you with another one. We're not trying to buy their homes with our cash. They're trying to buy our cash with their homes.
Yeah, what I hear there with that is you want to have the right posture and the right positioning when we're doing sales. And the approach I like to take is like, well, you tell me why I should buy your house. I'm buying a house today, one way or another. Tell me why it should be yours. Now, I don't say it so much like that. I mean, you could say it that, but that's the point. Is like, what is your posture? Is your posture, I'm chasing you, which now you lose authority. Your trust goes way down because I'm trying desperately to make a sale because I need to make money this month, right? Like if your sales team or you have that attitude, it's of nonverbal, it comes through in the way that you approach things, then you put them in the driver's seat, and now you're chasing them. I never want to be chasing them. I'm always elevated, and they're always trying to convince me that I should be buying their house. So I'll say to them, I might not be the right buyer for your house. I'll say, I really think you should probably just list this with a real estate agent.
Ooh.
I don't know that I'm the right solution for you. And that takeaway creates like, oh, well, wait a second. This guy doesn't need me, and now I'm all of a sudden back in a control position of this conversation.
And for those of you who are listening that haven't used those lines on literally the last call that you were on, I know you're nervous. I know you think you got one in the hand, and if you do this, that you might actually lose the deal. I promise you, you will get more deals by doing aggressive takeaways than you'll ever lose by not doing them. Like it's going to bring these people to you. And what I loved you said about posture, because I always talk about how something, I don't use it as beautifully as you're saying it, but it's offer positioning. But you can't position your offer and create scarcity unless you have postured yourself as that authority. Because when you don't, and you don't have that scarcity for them, not it's like, I'm not coming to you. It's really hard to get business today. And the biggest thing I saw when I came into this industry is people like, yo, just got another contract. I'm like, okay, cool. That's great. And then they were like, no, man, like I sent it out on DocuSign. Like, oh, you sent an email to somebody. I got you. Yeah. And then it'd be like projected profit. And so it was like all these words that like confused me when I got into this. And I was like, man, these people would just only send out a contract either right there in person, get it locked up there, or while they had them on the phone. It would account for so much more revenue in this industry. So I guess from an offer positioning standpoint, how are you creating some scarcity around that so that way they do come to your side of the table as soon as possible, hopefully today?
Yeah, great question. I mean, really, when you think about it, I don't ever want to put somebody in a situation that isn't actually the very best solution for them. And so sometimes I'm not the right solution, but I want to provide you the right solution. I need to understand your situation, and then I'll offer to you what I think is the right solution. And if that's not me, great. I've got great referrals and references. I can help you get the solution you're looking for, but I need to know if what we're talking about here, I mean, you're talking to an investor that pays all cash. There's a discount for that, but let me show you the value that is. And you tell me if that's what you're looking for. And now all of a sudden they feel from you like, you're not trying to make a sale, you're trying to provide a solution if it's the right one. And I just need to know more about what's going on here. And when you do that and you're willing to say, hey, look, that's not me, what you're looking for, but here is what you're looking for. Or what I'll often do is I'll say, hey, just so you know, let me help you understand the difference between what I do as an investor and maybe what a real estate agent does, and what those two differences are. And then you make the best decision for you in your situation. And 9 times out of 10, they come full circle back to me. And now when it's time to talk about what that number looks like, I've already got them, 80% of the way there, because I've set the tone and the positioning into why they should keep talking with me or not. Right. I don't know if that answered that question exactly.
It does. Dude, I love it because it reminds me of one of my favorite sales phrases. And this one I can say I genuinely came up with a long time ago, but it was educate first, help second. And I always believe that if I truly have a great product, 80% of my job really is a transference of feelings. If I can make you feel how I feel about my product, we will get there. The other 20% is numbers and technicalities and specs and all those other things. But when you hear that educate first, help second, it reminds me of what you just said. Like, I'm going to teach them about the industry. I'm going to teach them about the market. I'm going to teach them about what happens if they elect to hold on to it for 6 months, some of the risk exposure, et cetera. So yeah, what does that mean to you?
I mean, I would say 9 times out of 10, if you watch any of I do a lot of live calls. If you watch any of my agent or direct seller calls, 90% of the conversation is me educating that person on what the hell's going on here and what their options are. I'm teaching them here's what your options are, and you tell me what's the right thing you're looking for. If it's me, great. If it's not me, that's great. That's fine too. And so you're so right. It's your job is mostly going to be educating sellers on their options. And if you do that well, and you're concise and you're clear with confidence, all that, then what you're going to find out is most of the time they're going to come back right to you, because they wouldn't be talking to you in the first place if there wasn't some level of motivation going on, because they would have just called a real estate agent. There's something going on here. Yes. And that's what the lead qualification should have done, depending on what you're doing. But in most cases, there's that initial lead qualification. And if that happened at any level, then there's probably a reason why they're talking to you. And you just need to help them understand if that's true and how that's supposed to be helpful to them.
I love it. I think about some of your four. Yeah. I'm so sorry, Jerry. I think about some of your 4 pillars, and like I've researched your kind of like cold calling methodology, and outside of this podcast studio, we got our little center here, and we'll do 4.8 million dials this month. Like we're doing like high volume, and it's so crazy how much in alignment that some of your concepts are with what we're doing. It just talks about the universal truths, but you talk about like hardship, urgency, condition, and price flexibility. And so not only do you have those, which are so consequential to being a quality conversation, but you also talk about don't manufacture motivation, find the sellers with motivation. So dive into that a little bit more for people who are doing cold calling, who are stuck trying to convince people to sell their house.
Yeah. And along those lines, the biggest mistake people make in our industry is they overfocus or hyper-focus on condition. I put very little effort into condition.
Amen.
I audit calls all the time with my students, and I can't tell you, I listen to 45 minutes of a conversation about how old the roof is and the furnace and all this other stuff. Who freaking cares? None of that matters. None of it matters. Here's why. We're going to use some level of a formula to get to an offer price. And in that formula, we're building in that it's going to need work done. Now, you need to know at a very high level if it's a heavy rehab, an average rehab, or a light rehab. That's it. Right? That's all you need to know. And you're going to use some standardized numbers, and you're going to make some assumptions. You're going to go uncover all of that when you do your walkthrough and you send 10 cash buyers in there anyway, right? You don't need that. And then none of that's relevant. None of that's important. What's important is what is going on with this person. And then how do I hyper focus on the distress, the urgency, the other things that actually matter, not condition. So guys, if you find yourself talking about condition for more than 1 minute, if you ever hear me ask condition, like tell me a little bit more about the condition, tell me what's going on with the property. Or if I ever say something like, when was the last time the kitchen was updated? I'm only asking that question, not because I care what the answer is, but because at the same time I'm asking that, I'm getting my numbers together and I'm buying time because I know they'll talk about that for a little bit longer. And I'm half listening because it does matter. They might say something relevant.
Yeah.
But it's less about what they're saying, and it's more about it's more about what else is going on here, and buying a little bit of time so that I can get to the juicy stuff, right? So, but that discovery process is, I'm assuming we're talking here because there's some distress going on. Is there urgency, and how urgent is the urgency? The more urgent, the bigger deal you get and the better you can craft your offer. Assume there's already a condition problem, or they wouldn't be talking to you. They'd be talking to an agent. 9 times out of 10, sometimes they slip through, but most of the time they would already have called an agent if there wasn't high urgency and it wasn't in bad condition. So now it's just a matter of like getting your head around it and then helping them see the value you bring.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that when people are asking condition, they're defaulting to it, but they're not playing chess. It's not like you're saying they're 3 steps ahead in their pitch. They're trying to wrap their heads around the comp. But within those questions, if you do listen well, you'll still should be able to find some pain points. It may be the reason why the cabinets are like that. It's the husband's in a wheelchair, or she doesn't, he's constantly going up on the roof and it scares her. So there can be some value to it when you're asking them strategically. For us, one of the things that I learned, it took me a couple of years to really get this right at scale, but there's like 2 core metrics that I look for, Jerry. Either high motivation, or if quasi low motivation, a very low asking price. So we came up with this concept called a seller motivation index, where we have the scoring methodology that we have from 1 to 5 based on various points within the call. So it's like, if they have a rock star motivation and they're ready to start the process of selling their home today, I don't actually give a shit what their asking price is. I'm going to get them on the phone and I'm going to build value. Now, if they're like, whatever, then they better want under 60% or whatever our formula does. But I think that was the big balance I had to try to find, because with cold call in general, you can get a lot of heartbeat in a home leads, and that can really ruin the morale of some closers. And so I watched your YouTube video. You posted like 2 days ago. You were talking about the difference between leads and opportunities and going down the funnel. And I really love that, because I think the definition of lead in this industry needs to be clarified. It's damn well just data. A lead is data. An opportunity is somebody who's raised their hand. Let's not conflate these two.
Yeah, that's really important. I mean, that's a very important distinction, because that term is used so loosely in our industry. So we have to define that better, I think, quite a bit. And, a lot of this too is very much driven by the marketing channel. So like,
True.
if you're doing cold call, you guys specialize in cold call, then you have to know that when you go into that call, you're somewhat at a disadvantage because you're outbounding that seller. And so you have to approach that the right way as an outbound lead. And you're going to have to work a little bit harder than an inbound lead in creating the right positioning so that you're in authority. Because they get to say, well, you called me, you tell me the number, you called me. And you always want to be the one where you're saying, well, you need me more than I need you, even though I called you. So how do you reposition that? And that's one challenge with a cold call funnel. But all that means is, it means you just got to understand the nature of this lead and then adjust accordingly. And when you adjust accordingly and you do that effectively, then all of a sudden now you're having some real impactful conversations. And so the other thing that I wanted to say about that, Scott, is I have a saying that is price is a deceiver. So even though it's one of our 4 pillars, we put very little value in that price. If the other 3 pillars are there, there's distress, there's urgency, and there's condition. If those 3 are there, you're moving on to that close. Like you're staying on that conversation, because, and this is a huge mistake. People get the price number and they automatically assume, retail lead, and hang up and get off the phone. And they're people that are doing that are missing a massive opportunity.
I think about the technology gap, and there's a lot of super cool tools. I've seen like your whole tech stack, which I love. But I think one of the things that has to be really brought stronger in this industry is a knowledge base of really good drip sequencing and what that means for each funnel. Because you're right, when you do a cold outreach, you kind of lack that innate built-in authority figure. I reached out to you. But when you're dripping to these people, even after you've made an offer, if they said, you know what, I don't want to sell, you now become that friendly name. No different than with that big guy who paid for TV. No different than the big guy who keeps on sending them 7 postcards. Having that drip sequence turns a outbound lead into an inbound lead just 4 months later, but nobody's spending the time to build out the drip sequencings that matter. And if you use that on your inbound leads, sky's the limit.
Yeah, you might have these stats better than this, but I heard the National Sales Association, I don't know what they're called, but they said that and this is sales general, like industry wide sales, but they said closed sales are in the 5th to 12th follow up. Or sorry, 80% of sales happen between the 5th and 12th follow up. Now I think that's fairly accurate in cold call, an outbound method like cold calling. Like, guys, the money is in the follow up. The people that make the most money in a cold call campaign are the ones that do a really good job documenting. They do a really good job remembering that person. They do a really good job following up, staying in touch, all the things, touching and consistency and all of that. They're the ones that land the big deals.
Yeah, I agree. I think also too, the stat that we should introduce to this industry though, is even in the one call closes, it takes 5 no's to get to a yes. And it's going to be multiple times. And I think the pain point is I see a lot of investors, and this is what I love about your story, because I know you started out doing buying direct in Detroit, and then ultimately you realized the wholesale space, and then kind of like it opened up some doors for you. But I watch investors struggle when they try to go direct to seller for the first time, because they've only been buying on market, and they've only been buying from the MLS. So they don't have any level of sales friction and can deal with that a bit of pain. But if they just understood, like, hey, listen, I need these 4 no's over 2 calls, that 5th one is where it's at. And that's what I want to get across to people. It's not that it's not a deal. You just gave up just 1 no too soon.
Yeah, I think that's true. A lot of people that come from the on-market world, if it's on market, then you already know they want to sell, right? So, and then you also can look at an ask price and you can decide if I'm even going to get on the phone. So if you're one of those people that does on market and you don't even pick up the phone unless it's already priced halfway decent, when you go from that to a direct to seller model, you are so unprepared for the no's to get to the yeses that most people fall on their face and can't handle it because they just don't understand the model of, every no is that much closer to a yes. And it's just a numbers game, right? Like we go on appointment a lot, and I know that's not a cold call business, but I do the math and I say, if I get a contract for half or 25% of every appointment I go on, and my average fee is 20 grand, then every time I go on appointment, I'm making $2,000. That's how salespeople think. Every time I pick up the phone, I make $1,000 or I make $500. I just got to pick up the phone 20 times, 50 times, and I'm making money.
That's the mindset. Dude, that's why I love your voice in the industry to get these kids excited. It's tackling dummies, man. It's like shit. If it was super easy, everybody would do it. And I feel like everybody is doing it.
You want it to be hard. You want it to be hard.
Yeah.
If it's not hard, too many people would do it,
I want to ask you, man, I love how you comp things like a savage, you're negotiating like a savage. Like that's the whole motto. How are you running comps at scale? I think this is something a lot of people kind of fail at, is being able to keep the speed, and the closers sometimes can't do it in that call. So then they're having to let them go, or they assign somebody, a teammate to do the comps. But what are your tips and strategies after all these comps that you've run in your life that you're using to comp quickly?
I mean, the best thing you could do in this business is to not know how to comp and don't comp. Like, just don't. Comping is the most overrated thing in the world. Here's why. There's a difference between an offer price and a buy price. Like, if I'm going to buy a piece of real estate, I better dial in my numbers. I better do my due diligence. I better drive the neighborhood. I better know the comps. I better talk to a lot of people. I better get bids on the condition. I better do a lot of things. I better really analyze this if I'm going to buy. But guys, when you're making offers and you're making 100 of them a day, you got to get to a number fast. And it doesn't matter if you're on or off. What matters is you're low enough to weed out the unmotivated. That's all an offer is intended. An offer is intended to uncover motivation. That's it. Because here's why. If you anchor low and you offer the right number, it should solicit a no, because it should be ridiculously low. This is how I do it. It should be ridiculously low. They should say no. And then you get to say, yeah, that's my offer in the perfect world, but how close to that number could you get? Now they're going to tell you the real number. And if that real number is anywhere in the ballpark of what a deal looks like, then now you can dance. Now, okay, let's talk about this. Let me look at what's going on here. Now maybe do some comping, but that's only when you know you got somebody in the ballpark of where you need to be. And where you need to be is really easy to get to. Like, honestly, guys, if you just said, I'm going to take the Zillow number and I'm going to low anchor at 40%. And they counter back at 60% of the Zillow number. Great. Let's keep talking and maybe we can get to 50 and we got a deal.
Yes.
You don't need to comp. Your comping uses way too much brain power. You're gonna be fried by noon if you're comping, and you're gonna be mush the rest of the afternoon, and you're gonna get home and crash on the couch because you're using way too much energy in your business.
That's spoken like a coach who's played so many games with so many different players over the years, because everybody who's not doing that is like, oh no, man, all the deals that I'm going to lose, man, that's the reason why I got to offer him the highest amount I can possibly offer him. And I don't want to keep on burning them. But no, that's not it. Anchor.
No, because very rarely if you low anchor, very rarely are they going to say, oh, I'll take that. Yes. Very rarely. It does happen sometimes, but if you did, you probably didn't low enough, right? They're not going to say yes. What they're going to say is they're going to say, no way, but I could get to here. And when they say, but I could come to here, those are the ones you spend time on. That's it. All the other ones, you're not wasting all your time on it. So it's just efficiency now. It's all about efficiency. Like, I only want to be comping when I'm like, are we within 5 or 10 grand of where I need to be? Let's comp it now and tighten the number up. But like, people that are comping to just get to an offer, oh my gosh, you are totally missing the boat for a couple of reasons. One, that's going to take you time, and all that time you're doing that, you're missing out on high motivated conversations with real buyers, with real sellers. You're doing 20 less calls a day if you're doing that.
Amen. Don't be afraid, boys and girls. Don't be afraid to give them a first number that makes you uncomfortable. I think that's the litmus test. If it makes you uncomfortable to tell it to them, you probably got the right anchor.
You should be embarrassed to give that number.
Ain't that something? It's such an emotional mind fuckery, excuse my language, but for a sales agent, it's like, but once you do it and you get that weight off of your shoulder of like, oh my God, I just anchored somebody that low, that it feels good. I want to ask you a couple of quick technical questions as we round it up, or not technical, general. But so like a script, a wireframe, or freestyle, let's just talk about people who are newer to the industry. Where do you put them on?
Yeah. I've got real mixed feelings about this because I give away a lot of scripts, and I give them away for free to people in the business. If you read my scripts word for word, you're going to sound like a robot and it ain't going to work. More than anything, a script just should be giving you a framework. Look at the way the script is positioned, but you got to put your own voice on it. And more than anything, like, the reason why I put out so much content watching me do it isn't so that you can do this exact same thing the exact same way every single time. None of my calls are ever the same. I don't follow the exact same script. I do follow a format or a wireframe. Like, there's things that you need to accomplish in this conversation that are going to get to a close. And if you can first understand the big picture, practice on details and situations and different scenarios, that's good. But really, honestly, like, once you have the framework, it's all reps. And once you do enough reps, there ain't a thing in the world someone could ask you that you won't have a answer to. And that's not true. I still get things where I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never heard this before, but I'm not afraid to be like, now, can you explain that to me again? I'm totally not following you here. And then you still have authority because you're open to be vulnerable with somebody and say, I don't really know the answer to this, but I'll find it out, but like, it's all about the framework. If you have a script, guys, and you're following a script, you got to get away from the word for word thing. Like, don't read that. You're going to, practice role play, but don't read that script on the phone.
Yeah. I train people, Jerry, that it's almost like a assembly line at a car plant where they're custom ordered cars. Yeah, they're going to have different leather. It's going to have different colors, might have some additional features. That's kind of the freestyle nuance, but it's always going to go through this. It's always going to be a frame, and then a chassis, and then the tires and the engine. There's going to be an order of events. Yes, they will be curated or specialized to this individual buyer. In our case, is a seller, but that we still go through the exact same process, albeit with a little bit of different flair for each.
I like that. That's a great explanation. Yeah. It's an assembly line. Yeah. And you got to custom build it. Yep. I like that.
I only got a couple questions left in our time. And I don't know if I start with the worst one, or I'll start with the worst one. Did you really find a severed head in one of your flips?
Yes. Crazy story. So the end buyer was doing his walkthrough on the day of closing, and this was a hoarder house, and it was as is, so it was with all the junk. So he's doing his walkthrough with his contractors and stuff, and in the basement of this house is a chest freezer. They literally open the chest freezer, and there is a severed human head and hands in the freezer.
Why wouldn't he take it? Like, how are you that much? Was the guy dead? Was the seller dead? Was it an inherited house or something?
So it was really sketchy because it was a widow. Dad had passed away 2 years earlier, and the widow lived there with her 21-year-old son. And of course, cops, FBI, all of it. And I followed the story afterwards because I was curious, I guess.
Obviously. Jerry Norton, Jerry Norton murderer.
Yeah, they approached the family, obviously, and the 21-year-old son immediately confessed and told the story that he had stabbed and murdered a homeless man in town. And it's like you can listen to this. You can find it online. It's like this kid needed locked up. Like, what is going on here? How is this kid roaming the streets? So yeah, that's what happened. So yeah, the 21-year-old kid had done that, and
wow, I don't know how I recover from that one. I'll just jump right into the next one. I'm glad I didn't end that one on that one. Tell me.
So Scott, I want to do a video that says how to get ahead in real estate as the title. What do you think?
I love it. AI, little talking head floating here beside you. All right, talk to me about AI, man. Give me some predictions on AI, and if you don't mind, about sales aspect of AI.
Yeah, I think AI. I mean, clearly it's transforming the world, but here's where we're going to see a big transformation happen in sales. Is as people move away from Google and they move to ChatGPT, your local presence as a business owner is going to become increasingly important. And I'll give you an example. The other day, I needed a lawyer for my lake house in Montana. And I typed in the ChatGPT. I said, give me the top 5 lawyers in this area that specialize in this type of law. And so then what does ChatGPT do? It gives me those 5 references, but where did it pull that? It's SEO in essence. It's pulling that from the top ranked, highest presence people in that market. And so if you're in this business as a wholesaler, you better be building a local presence, and because that's where the new searches are going to be coming from. And those are the people that are going to get all the business, I think.
I have many predictions about AI, and we won't have enough time. And some of it have already been either part of dev groups or people reached out because we're just doing things at scale. But one of the things I think is going to be really interesting for the virtual wholesaler guys that are out there is within a very, very short period of time. Like, we already take our transcripts, we put it into a custom GPT. It gives us the most beautiful analytical feedback. Power phrases, where we went right, where we went wrong. But in our dialer at scale, we don't currently have the feature on because it's just so cost prohibitive, but it live is giving you tips. And so as it's live listening to them, and it's like, oh, power button, hey, follow back up with this. And it's live coaching you. And you can say, hey, I want you to be like Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Jordan Belfort, Jerry Norton, Steve Trang. I want you to take all this, consume it, give me all the power phrases to be able to talk to a seller, and they can't see. And I'm reading that screen and I'm hitting them with the bam. Okay, trial close, another trial close. I think that's going to be exciting for us in the sales side. And
we built a really cool thing. It's a role play tool with a custom role play where it took all my scripts and all my calls. And now what you can do is you can go in there and you can say, okay, I'll be the wholesaler, you be the seller, and you be a tired landlord who doesn't want to let go of your property, blah, blah, blah. Like, you give it the narrative, and then you can practice with the AI role playing, which is awesome because you can get the marbles out of your mouth and stuff. Or you can reverse it. You can say, I'll be the seller, you be the wholesaler, and show me what it should look like. And then you can create objections and all of that. I mean, that's using AI to your advantage now. That's powerful. Like things like what you're doing. The one thing though that I will say here though, guys, is I don't think, Scott, that AI will replace the closer. I don't think it will, because maybe it can set the appointments and it can do the preliminary, maybe. But I think there is a massive mistrust in AI. And remember, most of our sellers are boomers. And a boomer does not want to talk to a robot. They just don't.
Yep.
And if they can sniff out that it's AI, you lost it. And
Yeah.
it's going to take a real person that's going to do the nuance to get to the close.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
think AI could probably set appointments for us.
Yeah, I think on a long enough horizon, we're all screwed though. And I don't know if that's a 10-year or 20-year. And I think that we're at this inflection point right now where the AI IG videos and TikTok videos are down to like 5% of them are detectable, maybe 10% are detectable as AI. As that gets to where it's indetectable, nobody has any clue if they're looking at an AI influencer or a local influencer. I'm really excited about what that means for really dialed in marketing campaigns where I'm talking to people in a certain county and the backgrounds and the voice inflections and the cadences to sound like somebody that's there. So I think it's going to help people who use it as a tool be more successful. And if you don't use it as a tool, you will get consumed by that tool. Two real quick questions. I saw you tell somebody in a video this morning. I saw it. I forget which video it said. You should just write on your bathroom mirror before you start, I'm $1 million wholesaler, blah, blah, blah. That speaks to my heart. If you went into my home bathroom, if you went into the blah, blah, blah. So why did you say that to that person? What does that mean to you to kind of visualize it?
Well, I mean, everything has to happen conceptually before it can happen physically. Like everything's spiritual first and then physical second. And like so many people, they're in this business and it's like, do you believe that you could do $1 million in revenue? Do you believe that? Because if you believe that, you'll show up and then do it. And so those declarations and that way of thinking about who you are, if you can't identify as a closer and a top closer, how will you ever be one? So like, and I feel like what we're going to see here, Scott, is I think we're going to see an emergence of $1 million solo producers with tech and AI and all these things that we have now, data. I have that. I have a partner right now in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he's a one-man operation. Now I'm in the background doing finance and some other things, but for the most part, we're a very small operation in that market, and we'll do $1 million plus this year without a big team, without all this stuff. We don't have all these things. And so, but we're very, very efficient in the marketing, in the follow-up. I mean, we rely heavily on technology, systems, processes to not have a ton of human bodies on payroll.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
I never knew that was I never thought you could do $100,000 a month consistently on your own in this business. With like a lead provider like you guys that's giving quality leads. I'm a good closer, so that's crazy. I mean, that's just amazing.
I love it. I could go deeper down that, but I want to ask my final question because every other guest I've had that I've asked this to have all said you're on it. But I want to know for Jerry Norton, who's on your Mount Rushmore of wholesaling?
Someone in the industry that's fairly new, I think he's got a pretty established presence today, but he hasn't been on the scene very long, is RJ Bates. And I like RJ because he's very no nonsense. He's very real, says it how it is. There's no, what's the right word? There's a lot in our industry that I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. Yeah. And whether it's popular or not, or only if it's popular, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. And he's one of the few that I think is willing to put his money where his mouth is. He's one of the few that will actually go live with me and do calls. Most people won't because they're embarrassed. They'll look bad and that'll be negative on them as an influencer. And so I just have tremendous respect for him.
Yeah. Anybody else on the Mount Rushmore?
I mean, I've got close friends that I really like. Like I think Brent Daniels and his operation is top notch. Jamil Damji, that guy does 50 deals a month in his Arizona area. I mean, they got that dialed in. Those are some people that I think are just really good at the business.
I agree with all of them deeply. And I do love RJ because he's no nonsense and he's not afraid to create friction and be honest while creating friction. And I love that too about him. So,
he's called out a lot of industry standard stuff that's not that great in our wholesale industry. He's called it out, not afraid to call it out if he thinks it's not right.
Yeah, I love that. Jerry, dude, I appreciate it. I'm sure we could have gone forever on the sales tip. I thank you for coming in here and dropping bombs. For people out there who maybe aren't 100% already dialed in and subscribed, blah, 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 where do we go to find out more about your whole entire ecosystem?
Yeah, it's usually, it's pretty much YouTube. Like that's my main thing is Flipping Mastery is the channel. Yeah, it's on the screen there. Thank you. Yeah, that's where I put most of my effort. I really try to pour into that content. I'm active in the comments in there, but that's the main thing. Everything else is sort of secondary, I think.
Cool.
But yeah, that's because that gives me a platform where I can actually teach and show. I have a hard time with this, like, I'm going to show you something in 60 seconds kind of thing. You know, there's a place for it, but I really like to pour into the content on YouTube.
Yeah, I was telling somebody it's like a true university. Just going in there, there's so much free content that if you have doubts about the industry, about what to do, you can go there. But following it and making that person that you actually say, hey, I'm going to walk in their shadow until I can walk on my own. I think you're the OG. I really value your time, Jerry, for coming out here and chatting with us. And I look forward to meeting you in person one day soon.
Thank you, Scott.
All right. Thank you, brother.